Welcome back from your breakout rooms. I hope you all learned something new and worthwhile. I'm here with our Executive Director, Lorraine Gilligan, and some of my colleagues from our Fireside Chat and Breakout Rooms 1 and 2. We do not have our presenters from Breakout Room 3 here, unfortunately. As you can see, we're a little limited on stage space, but also storytelling and sharing your project results is a topic that's really unique for every project. I will pass on any questions that you might have for Breakout Room 3, and I'll share those later. Could I just start by asking everyone here to give us a brief introduction to our audience? Lorraine?
Thanks, Terry. I'm Lorraine Gilligan, and I'm the Executive Director for Léargas.
My name is Una Kehley, and I'm an e-twinning officer at Léargas.
I'm Suzanne Byrne. I'm the Senior Sport and Development Officer with the Youth Sport and ESC team.
Fantastic. Florence?
Florence McGee. I'm Senior Support Development Officer on the Education and Training team for Vocational Education and Training.
Thanks, Terry. I'm Celine Martin, Head of the Youth Sport and the European Solidarity Core team.
I'm Caroline York. I'm the Support and Development Officer for Schools Key Action 1.
Great. Thanks, everyone. Now you know all the faces of who you need to contact. So we've received lots of questions and comments in the chat box during our opening, and the moderators are going to be compiling those questions here in front of us today. So I think I'd like to say at the outset that we'll definitely have all the slides, all the resources, all the links ready to go to send in your email. You'll get that early next week. But let's dive right into these questions. So we'll kick off with the first one here. I see it come up. How far in advance do we know the deadlines, and where do we find them? Okay, that's a really great question. Léargas has a lot of deadlines. It's very dependent on the sector and dependent on the action as well. So I'll kind of open that to everyone. Does anyone want to kind of talk about
I might start off with that one.
Yeah, great.
So October is a big month for deadlines for both education and training and youth sport and ESC. There'll be an accreditation deadline in October, as well as a short-term Key Action 1 deadline. And then February is the next month for deadlines as well.
Okay, so two key ones there, October and
ones.
February. Are there any other deadlines we need to?
Just the October deadline also includes the Partnership for Cooperation projects, the Key Action 2 projects.
Okay, great. And then also we do have a dedicated space on our website for deadlines. So I'll share that link with everybody when we send out the kind of post-event pack. Great, moving on to question 2 there. Are there ever events where we can talk to people running projects? Ooh. Yeah, that's another one I'm going to open to the floor because everybody runs kind of different events and might have unique experiences about that. So
I can start off, yeah. So when we're running our support events, such as even from our information sessions right through to our project development workshops and our application clinics, we would often invite in established beneficiaries who have really good examples of projects to share with newcomers and people who are thinking about applying. So we would do that as part of our support events. So there might be something to add.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I suppose recently we also hosted in the Midlands in cooperation with Youth Work Ireland a networking type event where projects that were inexistent and organisations, they had some experience, they were happy to share their knowledge with potential newcomers and also share their opportunity to meet partners potentially. So yes, depending on the need, you know, we will provide additional supports as well to have that shared peer learning experience, which is really invaluable. Because when you hear it from the people themselves who have participated, you know, there's nothing like that than
I'm sure
that experience.
That must give people so many ideas, like ideas for their projects, but also ideas and maybe some support on the application process and everything. So great, we do that. Okay, moving on to question 3. Do you have to have done a training course like those mentioned to get your application through? So I think training courses would have been mentioned in both breakouts 1 and 2. From my knowledge, you don't have to do one, but I'm going to open that to everybody again because the training courses are something that are really beneficial, and I think everyone might have a little bit to say there.
Yes, so I can jump in with that. No, you don't have to take part in the training courses, but we do recommend taking part in our information sessions and our application workshops that we run in the lead up to the deadlines. We provide a lot of information about the application form and the different activities that you can take part in. So it's not necessary, but we do recommend.
And then maybe just to add, just with the training and cooperation activities that we provide, so both national events and international events, we do really encourage people thinking about applying for a project that they might consider going on one of these international trips. These training courses are an absolute amazing opportunity to take part in and really give you inspiration for projects and an opportunity to find your international kind of network. And yeah.
And the TCAs that you mentioned, so we call them TCAs, they're transnational corporation activities, and they're often very thematic. Celine, you might be able to speak to that now because I know that you've kind of worked across that quite a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So some of the training and cooperation activities, for those of you who don't know, are really a first stepping stone into the program so that you can have that personal experience and that personal journey. There's nothing like having experience yourself then to go off and promote it then and see the benefits for other young people. I know at the moment we're working in partnership with UNESCO to look at sustainability in youth work practice, and we're supporting youth workers specifically around that aspect of the priorities within the programme. So, and that application is actually open there at the moment for participants to join that. I think there are some others as well in the
so for the
school
school
sector.
for the school sector, we will have one at the end of the year. We are currently organising it. It's about well-being, outdoor education and nature. So if anyone's interested in taking part in that, they can contact me afterwards.
Great. So these would be for organizations whose maybe their mission or ethos or project is based around those themes. It would be helpful for them to attend.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, that's great. Let's move on. Oh, sorry, Florence. Yeah.
Circle back to the application process, and just to recognize we have a lot of newcomers joining us today. I think the longer time you spend looking at what the program does, what are the options of different projects, and what's involved in making an application, really it helps you prepare for that application in advance to actually understand, what is needed to put a project together. And then also the benefit of information sessions, they allow you to ask questions and to learn from other projects asking questions. So we see people really understanding, some things that they actually hadn't thought about yet, but it means you're not on your own just reading through things. So we have a lot of application sessions and information sessions, it's a mouthful, coming on accreditation, on small scale projects, and all of these are on our training and event page.
Yeah, I think combined with the information sessions, the application workshops, the project development workshops, and even a lot of the thematic trainings that we have, they're really the stepping stones to kind of getting your application across. So fantastic. Moving on to the next question there, I see the participation projects mentioned. Are there any activities you can't do as part of them? And when is the next deadline? That's a great one for the youth team there. So I'll put that over to one you or Celine.
Yeah, I can start on that. I'm sure Suzanne will come in. So the participation projects, I suppose it's really to say that, this is the real opportunity for young people in the youth sector to get involved in designing their own project idea, but more importantly, to have a say in influencing what's important to them, what difference they want to make, to connect with policymakers and have their viewpoints heard. So really, I wouldn't say that, there's nothing you can't do. I think explore your idea, work with the young people to develop their idea, and really the world is their oyster. But probably particular interesting part about this is that, you can do a national activity. So it's a nice way to introduce yourself to the European programs. You don't have to travel, you don't have to have a mobility, you don't have to have an international partner at this stage. Of course you can do if you're adventurous enough, but no, it is a real good opportunity on a national level, I suppose, to support our national participation strategy as well, which is very to the fore at the moment. So, don't know anything else there, Suzanne, you want to add?
That covers it off. And just the other part of the question was just around the deadline again, and it's the 1st of October is the next deadline for participation projects.
Yeah, that's great. And I think it was really key to highlight that, Celine, because we're funding European programs. A lot of what we're talking about is international collaboration. And I do think that is the ultimate goal, but you can apply for national projects as well. They're very important. So thanks for kind of clearing that up. And moving on to the next question, I see here in the workshop it was mentioned that inclusion groups can get additional support. Can you tell us what this is and how we can get it? Ooh, I think that's a question for you, Lorraine, because you know so much about inclusion and the organization as a whole, and inclusion really is at the heart of what we do here at Léargas.
It is. And I think for those beneficiaries who've been part of the Erasmus programs through Léargas for many years, I think there'll be a recognition that inclusion and diversity is always something that we have, taken into our hearts and made part of our work and our supportive approach, and the ways that we try to always be delivering the program into parts of the country and organisations and groups that don't often see themselves as being the potential beneficiary of these programs. There can be a perception that it's far away from them, and our role really as an organisation is to do more activities like today, all of the different things that the colleagues have described, that will try and create spaces that are very inclusive and that will welcome newcomers or people who for whatever reason might feel it's not for them. So that's the ethos. It's part of our mission. It's also a very clear stated priority of the programs Erasmus Plus and ESC and all of the other initiatives that we're delivering on behalf of the European community. So with inclusion and diversity as a big priority, there has to be recognition of that within the program and a way to support it. So every activity and mobility that you can, almost every activity and mobility that you can access within the program will have the opportunity for inclusion support. And what that means is that I would suggest that it's a process you have a conversation with colleagues about so that you can understand it more, but where you might recognise or be able to show us that there's a barrier to participation in the program that can be fixed with funding, that's an opportunity for us to be able to give you the funding as part of your grant to do your project, so that it's not the problem anymore, then that we can reduce that barrier and help you to work on bringing your young people or the target groups that you're working with closer to the program, and given that it's Europe Day, closer to Europe as well.
Yeah, I think that's a great response, Lorraine. And I think we could go on and on about inclusion supports that are offered. And just one thing as well, so we do have a dedicated inclusion officer at Léargas, and that very role is meant to support people, offer that one-to-one small group support through applications, through project development. And that's, it's really great that we have that. And I will share her details with you so you can all contact her when you can. All right, let's go on to that next question there. So how does Léargas deal with the environmental cost of the travel that it funds? I think this is another one for you, Lorraine.
I knew you were
Put me on the spot.
I knew you were going to give
Put
this
me on
one
the
to me.
spot.
Yeah, well, look, I think it's a very obvious, kind of dilemma that we have. We have one of the biggest mobility programs in the world, and certainly in Europe, and then a partner program, European Solidarity Corps. And the whole idea of that is to move people and put them together and create learning environments that will create solidarity and all of these really positive changes that we're offering as an opportunity to our citizens. But we have to always kind of balance that, I suppose, with the responsibility that we have to the environment. And it's a very challenging one to do, given that we're an island. So to some extent, we have limitations in the opportunities for low emissions or lower emissions type of travel options that maybe are available on the mainland continent. But we are definitely working to try and challenge that and to manage that as the programs grow. So what you'll see now within the program guide for Erasmus Plus and ESC is that green travel is available, and it's the default. So anybody who's applying for an Erasmus Plus mobility opportunity or a European Solidarity Corps mobility opportunity, the green travel is their default. And while there's recognition that in Ireland those limits are different, what we're trying to do in Léargas is encourage our beneficiaries to try and choose and plan for the most low emissions that they can possibly do. So we would be encouraging people to maybe take a shorter non-stop flight to their to either their destination or to a point in Europe, and then seek alternative low emissions travels from that point onwards. that can be funded, very well within the programs, but it's very much something that we're mindful of. I know our colleagues are going to be doing some TCA activities on sustainability, or have just done something on sustainability, so it's an educational piece for us that we're always trying to learn, as well as create spaces for learning and understanding more on that topic. And I think the last thing I would say is that the commitment is there from the Commission to support us as national agencies to better understand and better adapt our activities in recognition of the impact that it has on the environment. So we have a SALTO, which we mentioned earlier on for training. There's a number of those, and one of them is focused on green and the challenge that we face around climate change and sustainability. So we're working with them to try and address our impact and make sure that we educate ourselves more, and that we get good information, and that we work in partnership to make less of an imprint in the future than perhaps we have in the past.
Yeah, I think that was a great response. And key there is like we're educating ourselves as well. It is a huge priority for the programs, for the organization. And also, just going back to that question about events and like, do you need to attend trainings and everything? This is one of the reasons it's great too, because our program officers are speaking about the green travel priority, how it works, how you can use that in your application and sustainably travel with your project. So that's just one more reason to attend some of the events that we have on offer. Thanks, Lorraine. All right, moving on there, I see, can we participate with organizations based in Northern Ireland or in the UK? And they mentioned their vocational education training. Okay, so Florence, it's perfect for you. Yeah.
So unfortunately, for most of our activities, we cannot collaborate with organizations in the UK. So that includes Northern Ireland. For mobility of InVet, so just sending out, and for small-scale partnerships. So if you had, maybe that was in Breakout Room 2, we looked at the map of the countries that you can engage with on the program, the countries in the Union, and then what we call third countries associated with the program, which you can partner with. And unfortunately, the UK is not on that list. So the only part where a UK partner could be brought in is for what we call the cooperation partnership, the large-scale partnerships that are available on all sectors, not only VET. And these can be brought as a partner, but they have to bring in something that a partner from the European Union couldn't bring. So they have to bring a special expertise that will add to the project. But in general, and particularly when it comes to mobility projects, unfortunately, the UK and Northern Ireland is not included. And we come across partners, organizations who have partners, historical partners in the UK. Unfortunately, that can be covered by the program. So
Thank you for that, Florence. And we have that map actually that you shared in your breakout room. That will also be in your event pack as well. So thanks for answering that question. Moving on, the next one, how do most projects find a partner or a few partners? And do Léargas organize this? So I can tell you right now, we get that question all the time about partner finding, and we do not organize partner finding, but we do have ways that can support people through this. And Una, I think that's a perfect question for you about the platforms that we have.
Yeah, so partner finding is obviously a very important step in your project. Luckily, there's lots of online tools available in the different sectors. So for school education and early years, we've got eTwinning. For adult education and VET, we have IPALE. And then for youth projects, there's Salto Youth. So each of those has a dedicated partner finding area. You can go in and you can specify exactly what you want, the age of the students you're teaching or the theme of your project. Or you can respond to people who have already posted or maybe have existing projects. You can join what they already have. And for example, eTwinning is a community of over 1 million people across Europe. So you have a lot of people to choose from, luckily.
Yeah, a lot of partner findings to do.
Yeah.
I think what's interesting about those platforms as well, Una, for both eTwinning, IPALE, and Salto, which is for youth, there's so many resources. It's really good for community building.
It is, yeah. There's so much available there. There are resources for things unrelated to your projects too, for using in the classroom. There's communities where you can kind of share best practice and meet people as well. There's outside of the partner finding. So yeah, there's lots to be found.
Could I add one thing just about sport? So we don't have a partner finding tool for sport yet because it's the newcomer to the programme in terms of decentralised actions within Léargas. So we are really lucky. We are involved in an online networking event with the Estonian National Agency, and there's an open call for sports organisations to apply for that on our website at the moment. So we'd really encourage any sports newcomers to go attend that networking event. It's online and it's over the first 2 days after the June bank holiday weekend, so it's very soon.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And they can find that on our training and events page. Is that right? Yes, that's perfect. So any sports organizations? Oh,
You want to go first?
No, you go.
Well, I was going to say that you never know who's nearby where you are, who's done an Erasmus project, and they will also have partners. So if you look at our website, you'll see the list of projects that we funded this year, last year, or before. So if you can search that and find someone nearby you or in your contacts around you in your youth work community or your school community here in Ireland, and ask them as well, somebody will have a suggestion for you or maybe know of an activity as well. So there's lots of networking that can be done through us, but don't underestimate your own networks and your own bodies and
Really good point,
organizations as well.
yeah, that's a great point. Celine, did you want to add there?
Yeah, I was just going to add, we mentioned earlier about the training and cooperation activities, and also within that, the opportunity to travel abroad yourself. So as part of your own professional development, Léargas supports your participation in those activities. But one of the invaluable experiences people tell us about on those is that they actually connect with their partner. They find somebody that's like-minded, that has similar values, similar aspirations, and that's actually a really good place because the partner is so important to the success of your project. So I'd say take your time, find the right partner, don't rush in, and use those opportunities that are there to really develop good partnerships.
Yeah, fantastic. Thanks for that, everyone. Moving on to the next question there. Can the panelists share with us their top tips for successful projects? Yeah. Well, I'll open that up to everybody. Hope you have some tips ready to go.
Maybe
Florence,
I
will
can
you start?
Yes, because it's something we really try to highlight in our breakout room is how important it is for projects, especially when they're multi-annual projects, to actually benefit the organization as a whole and really go in the same direction as your strategic objective. So wherever your organization, whether it be a very small organization or much larger, has some goals, and it's really using those Erasmus projects to further those goals, amplify them, give them a European dimension, but that helps you also obtain your achieve whatever you're looking at national and local level. And it gives you a slightly larger view. And because, of course, there's work involved, so it's really good if it doesn't duplicate whatever work your organization is doing, but it actually helps you along. And we see organizations develop leadership because they're able to do what they're doing normally, but at a larger scale. So I think that's, just in terms, it's not a specific tip, but in terms of outlook, it's really something we encourage organizations to do. So it's more mindset, more a tip.
That's great. A mindset tip. I like it.
My top tip is, well, there's a few, but the first one is definitely time. Give yourself time for your application. Don't rush it at the very end, like up to the deadline. We've had a number of occasions when people just haven't gotten it over the line because they've missed the deadline, and we don't control the deadlines. So time, but then also I think read the program guide, that criteria list. If you consider it even like a job application, it's like it's spelt out for you what they're looking for. So you really have to answer the criteria in your application form. So I think it's really important to really read that program guide, and don't rush through like the first two sections, put all your information into your project design. Really consider your impact section of your application form. The impact section is always the one that can score lower, like by the external evaluator. So I think it's really important to give each criteria the same amount of kind of time and respect.
Yeah, that's a great tip. So take the time, read the program guide really carefully, look at that criteria and
Yeah.
map it against all of your your aims and objectives. Great.
I might just add to that as well then. So if you're just starting off and you don't really know where to start with your application form, I'd recommend doing a needs analysis of your organization and see what you could improve on, or if you want to introduce a certain topic or theme into your organization, or see if there's any area that your staff need to be upskilled in, or if your students are asking for any topic in particular. So definitely start off with a needs analysis. And we actually have a blog on our top 10 tips for your application form on our website. So definitely check that out. It's really useful.
Yeah, and we can link to that in the event pack as well, so you don't have to go on a hunt. Yeah, thanks for that, Carolyn. Anybody else want to add?
Yeah,
Lorraine?
always. In everything that the guys have said, but there's two tips I would give you. I think do take every opportunity to link in and use the wisdom of the team in Léargas and ask them questions and sound out your ideas, or come to trainings or workshops wherever you can. I think it'll give you a huge kind of sense of confidence as you approach what it can be a little bit daunting to kind of look at the application form and things like that. So there's a lot of resources and a lot of support and huge wisdom amongst the colleagues. And the second thing I would say is I think every successful project is a completed project. So don't overthink it. Jump in, make the commitment, take on the advice, work with your partners and do a project. And it doesn't matter if it doesn't go exactly according to plan. As you're doing your project, stay in touch with us as your national agency, and you'll learn so much from doing it. So every completed project is a successful project in my mind.
Great advice from everyone. All right, we'll move on to the next question there just to speed things up a bit. So how do you see the EU programs impacting on local communities? Oh, that's a really great one. And I'd say it could take us ages to answer, but I'm going to open it up. If anyone would like to start, does a project come to mind?
I'm happy to come in.
Yes, Celine.
There, I suppose we haven't mentioned too much about the European Solidarity Corps programme and volunteering, I suppose, and the volunteering opportunities. And I suppose that's one area that we feel has a huge impact on local communities. So within that, for example, for those who are not aware, so volunteers can come to Ireland from countries and they can spend time in your project, in your community, in your organisation, making a real tangible difference to the community. It can have a huge impact, not only on the community, but obviously on the personal development of the volunteer. But also within that, we have solidarity projects, where a solidarity project is basically if young people have a passion about something they want to address in their local community, like mental health, well-being, maybe a community garden, maybe support the senior generation, maybe do an intergenerational little project. It's just so vast what the impact that you can have with a solidarity project. And also it's a real opportunity to step in to the European programs in an easy way. So I think definitely the European Solidarity Corps can have a real tangible impact in communities. Obviously, at an international level, there's a lot of research where I'm not sure if our attendees are aware of RAY, which is an international research body on behalf of the youth sector primarily, but it also looks broadly at the impact of European programs. And we definitely know that recent research that was done by RAY will show us that the whole area of inclusion, diversity, I suppose acceptance and tolerance is where we can have a significant impact on these programs. So meeting from people from other cultures, from other communities, from other experiences. We know that the value of European programs now, we can see it evidence in the research now. On the other hand, when you meet somebody in person, that's the true example of when you can see the impact. So on the person and on the community. So you multiply that by the thousands of young people and teachers, youth workers who travel across Europe and experience, imagine that impact. So probably need to document that a bit more, but certainly there is, from my experience and from listening, there's a huge impact.
Yeah.
There's others might want to add more to that.
Yeah, I just maybe it'd be just nice to bring up a sports example as well because it is such a new action. But one of our very first sports projects was the Portlaoise Soccer Club, and they were they had an evening very recently where they shared just the findings from their job shadowing activity, and it was just you could really see the impact it had on that club, and they had a big long list of changes they were going to make in their club going forward as well. So just from that experience of sharing with the Belgium football club that they partnered with, and it was very impactful on them on that kind of small scale, but that can have a huge difference to maybe the young people or the children taking part in that soccer club. So I think it's just a kind of another example of that.
Yeah.
I think I have two things to add to this. One is at organization level, we have asked your beneficiaries, how does it change things for you? And we find that for the staff and for the teams taking part in those European projects, there is an increase in morale, in team building, really working together, and then learning to use new tools, new digital tools, through sharing with other counterparts or having to use our tools. But there is an increase in what they call professionalism, and capacity to take on new things, and maybe other grants at local and national level. And then, so that's my bit for the organizations really taking part and the staff in them, not only the opportunities of going abroad, but the fact of just doing it. And then finally, I wanted to tag in the fact that we have the whole adult education sector as well that is included, and that includes mobility. So we often think of Erasmus, obviously around young people and pupils and learners, but you can also bring groups of adults looking at any subject, as long as obviously it reinforces those priorities of inclusion or sustainability, digitalizations, and you have mobility of adults and seniors to Europe. So it's a great opportunity for organizations who might not have seen themselves as potential of Erasmus because they deal with adults to actually avail of that European cooperation, that of European mobility, and go and meet others who have the same passion in Europe, work together. So.
Yeah,
Could
fantastic.
I just add in one thing there, because you reminded me, I suppose, not to forget Discover EU. So 18-year-olds in particular have an opportunity to travel abroad and have that same experience. So from all ages, all sector, Erasmus is really reaching out, and there are fabulous opportunities. And in terms of the impact, I think as young people begin their journey in school right the way through, and they can continue on it more independently across Europe through Discover EU, it now means that constantly there's this idea of being European, being very connected to Europe. And I suppose it increases our connection, and particularly that we're here now on Europe Day today. It's really important that we acknowledge that value that it brings as well to individuals and to us really as a community, as Ireland in itself.
Yeah.
I might just add in what Florence was saying. So we've seen the impact on staff, of course, through their job shadowing and their staff training courses. But the impact on students is really amazing to see and watch them grow as people. But the school's impact report really shows that, because there's so many testimonials there from students and from staff participants as well. So it really talks for itself. And also, the students taking part in long-term pupil mobility as well. I know we had a school recently who some of the students have anxiety or maybe well-being issues, but when they went on their mobilities abroad, they came back completely new people, so much more found confidence, and it's just really amazing to see.
Yeah. I have to say, for myself, I know seeing the videos come in of participants, having interviews with them, hearing those testimonials, that's the best part. That's where you really feel like, wow, this has changed someone's life. It's changed their world. And I think it's just fulfilling to even kind of work in that space and get to be a part of those opportunities that we're delivering for people. It's fantastic. Lorraine, Una?
Can I?
Yeah.
I want to just take it up a little bit as well into, I think, the impact that communities have on the programs is also really huge. And we're at the point now in this cycle of programs, which ends in 2027, where we've just had a big consultation nationally and all across Europe, asking and inviting communities and people who've used the program and people who've never used the program to tell us what the programs mean to them and what they should look like for the future. So we're in that reflective sort of sweet spot at the minute where all of that consultation's done and we're waiting for the results to come back in. But it is part of how we do what we do, that we link in with the communities. We're in a very privileged position in Léargas to hear directly the impacts and the stories, and we do our best to amplify those. We're also measuring impact a lot with all the different studies and researches that we're a part of. But I think it's really important that we create that space for communities also to tell us what impact they want the programs to have, so that we can design the best space for these opportunities for the future.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a need. Glad to hear you say it. All right, we'll go on to the next question there. So I think this is the last one. Is the funding getting bigger? What does the future look like? Lorraine again.
Well, back to the sweet spot. Well, definitely the funding in this cycle of programs is going to get bigger between now and the end in 2027. And I think you'll see that in our communication every year. From the previous program, this Erasmus Plus was always going to be just double the funding and a little bit more. So that was a big transition from what we had before. And that's really, really heartening, because it means that, the political structures within Europe are valuing these opportunities and valuing the impact that they have, and they recognize that as Europeans we can create better societies, more inclusive societies, ones that will take into account the challenges of our times, whether that's digital or green, and these kinds of things as well. So there's definitely more funding going to be available in Erasmus Plus in this cycle of programs. Unfortunately, not so much with European Solidarity Corps. It's a little bit tighter in terms of that budget. We are already at the midway point, starting to plan and think and trying to understand what the future might look like in 2028, and hopefully for the next cycle of programs beyond that. But I think we're knocking on an open door with programs like Erasmus. There's good recognition there that it does the job that it's asked to do, and that it serves citizens of Europe. And I think we'll be able to make our case heard, hopefully, for bigger, better, more in the future.
Yes, and yeah, it's great to see that the funding is growing, it's steady. And I think Dee Finley had mentioned in our panel discussion, our fireside chat, about adult education and the huge growth that sector is seeing. So lots of funding there.
Yeah. All the sectors will have, really, I think, significant increases in funding. But I think some were starting from a lower benchmark than others. So it's great to see adult education being recognised in the final years of the programme in that way.
Fantastic. So I know we've got a few more questions, but we don't have time. This is going to be all we have time for today. But thank you to you all, and thanks to my colleagues. Thanks to everyone who attended, for sending us your questions, for coming to the event. As mentioned, we're going to be sharing an email with all of the slides, links, resources, and answers to not just the questions here, but the ones that we didn't get to. So you'll get all of that early next week. I'd like to encourage everyone to sign up for our newsletters. This is where you'll get the latest opportunities, events, and deadlines straight to your inbox. And of course, please don't forget the faces that you see up here today. We want you to get in touch with questions. We want to see both newcomers here and those with existing projects to be really successful and achieve great project results. So we're going to play you out now with some music from Cavan Town Kiltus. Thanks again.